Laptop computer spins onto the screen, opens, and displays ATP Education Program webinar series, closes, and then spins off the screen.
Hi, my name is Kelly Key, and I am an Assistive Technology Coordinator in Barrington, Illinois. I have been in the field of special education for over 25 years as a special education teacher, an administrator, as well as the Assistive Technology Coordinator for my district. I am excited to share with you some more information about core vocabulary, and this one is titled, When in Doubt, Core It Out, Embedding Core Words and Visuals Throughout Your Student's Day. So we all know how important core vocabulary is for our students. So just a quick review, if you've seen some of my other videos, all people need and use core vocabulary to communicate. 80% of the words we say, read, and write are core words. These words can be used regardless of the situation, age, or ability level of the partner. Core allows us to express a wide variety of concepts with a small number of words. It aligns with classroom curriculum and Common Core standards, and it is critical for language and literacy development. So why not find every opportunity that we can to immerse our students with these words? Just a thing to bring up about core vocabulary, these words contain very few picture producers. Actually, less than 10% of core words are picture producers. And let me share some examples of that. So the majority of the words in a sentence that we speak, read, or write are not picture producers. So for example, one word in the following sentence is a picture producer. I went on a trip and saw a dinosaur. Which word is the picture producer? Yes, dinosaur. So dinosaur would be considered a fringe vocabulary word. Look at the word on, if you want to picture a picture for the word on, even in its most common uses, you can't necessarily just have one picture for that word. So for example, if you said, turn it on, or go on, get out of here, or she came on time. They're all a little bit different, and it's really difficult to picture one picture in your head or one visual in your head for that core word. And I like to relate it to if you were playing Pictionary and you were given some of these core vocabulary words, would you actually be able to draw a picture that everybody else would recognize and knew went with that word? So for example, if I gave you the word it and you had to draw a picture for the word it, what one person may draw may look very different from another person. It's not very consistent. So therefore, they're not picture producers. But when it comes to pictures, these are the most widely used picture symbols. Currently, there's symbol sticks, there's the MinSpeak or Unity symbols, or the PCS symbols or picture communication symbols. But I do want to mention before I show you how we include symbols throughout our students' day, I should say core vocabulary words, but also paired with symbols. One disclaimer about the symbols. Again, we're talking about core vocabulary words and immersing our students with those words. The symbols are just kind of an added bonus to help to support our students sometimes. So it does not matter what symbols you choose to use to represent your core words, because communication is all about the words, not the pictures. So in another video, you're going to learn a little bit more about our core vocabulary initiative that's been going strong for 14 years in our district. But one of the things, just a small component of what we do, is we make sure we unify the classroom and our students' lives with core vocabulary words and visuals. So all students with complex communication needs, we say, should be exposed to and using core vocabulary and visuals throughout their day. And I'm going to share a wide variety of examples with you. And I'll tell you, it has been magical with both communication and literacy and just immersing our students in these words. So in my district, we have chosen to use the MinSpeak symbols for the core vocabulary words when a visual is needed. We try to stay as consistent as possible district-wide when using pictures for these non-picture producing words. We consider the MnSpeak symbols our anchor set of symbols. So certainly staff can use other symbols to represent words, but when we're looking at representing a core word visually for visual supports, we use the MnSpeak symbols from PRC. So you're going to see these symbols all throughout my examples. I want you to know that, again, it really, when you're looking at this, look at how we're embedding core words. If you chose a different symbol set or you have a variety of different symbol sets, that's absolutely fine. But in our examples, you're going to see the MnSpeak symbols. Again, choose what works best for you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one symbol set. So in our district also, you're going to see some examples with these boards. We have chosen to adopt these boards as our core vocabulary boards. And so you'll see those in some of the examples as well. Again, you choose what works best for you. If you haven't seen the series on choosing your universal core board, I recommend going back there, and I have a variety of different examples to choose from. So here are some examples of how we embed core just through our students' individual boards. We will add personal fringe, or I call it the personal core vocabulary for them that's important to them at the top often. We also have activity-specific fringe boards. So at the top, there's that fringe vocabulary that we can pair up with the core words to help expand language and go specifically with that activity. We have location-specific fringe boards. So in different places of the room, the fringe vocabulary will represent, for example, here, the writing center, or we have location-specific fringe boards that go all throughout our schools and even in our students' homes, just to help them expand that language with fringe vocabulary as well. We also have portable core. Portable core has been powerful because it's with us at all times. All the staff wear them on their lanyards. Staff and students will wear them even in portable things that go on their wrist. And then in large boards, we have large interactive boards. We have bulletin boards that are core vocabulary, that have core vocabulary in them. We have interactive class boards that we use on our smart boards. And then we also even have outside playground boards and, our courtyards in that as well. So now I'm going to dive into some chord out visuals to support expressive communication. So again, these are just examples, but I'm hopeful to give you ideas on how you can really help expand students' expressive communication with these visuals. And the key with this is whether the student is verbal, or maybe is verbal, but not fully functioning verbal. We really are trying to expand that language for them verbally, or if they're using a communication device. These are still excellent visuals, regardless of where the student's at, to help support and expand communication. So again, whether they're using these visuals to help support verbal communication or help support them with the use of AAC, it's incredible how they have expanded our students' expressive communication. So here's just some examples. Here's some examples in different locations of the classroom. So in an early childhood classroom, we have our core boards with the fringe, but then also we have these little helper strips, these little visual strips. So if a student wants to take a turn, instead of getting frustrated, we teach them to use these visuals to remind them that they can use their words, again, whether it's on a communication device or with their verbal skills. And so we have like the strip here, it says, "My turn, please," or "I need help, please." There's also on the visual on the right, there's a strip that says, "I want to play." So they can take these, they can hand them to their peer, and they can also then use them as a visual guide to communicate these things. In our classrooms, we have boards and strips everywhere. So there's another example. This is an example of a video. I covered up the student's face for privacy, but you can just see how powerful having these strips around the room, having staff in advance modeling how to use these for communication, and how powerful this is, and completely averted a full-blown meltdown for the student. She had her communication device in her backpack. She was just coming in for the day and her coat was stuck.
Hi. Want help? Good. I will help you get your coat off. Good.
So something as simple as this little visual strip that was there, again, pre-taught by teachers and staff modeling using it, it completely helped her with that as well, with be able to communicate. Even something as simple as our bathroom hall passes are poured out. I need to go to the bathroom. So you're giving them that vocabulary instead of just signing bathroom. They're now using their device or verbally expanding their language by telling you what they need. Again, here's just another way, and tons of different options, things like, can we do something? I can do it. I can do it myself. My turn, your turn. I like that. Do you want to play? All these awesome social visuals that we're giving our students. And again, they can take it off, they can walk it over to the peer, and then they can use it, whether it's verbally or with their device. And then coring out placemats is one of our favorite things that really does help expand language and use of these core vocabulary words. So here's just some examples of those. This is an example in one of our high schools where the teacher was trying to teach, courtesy and using excuse me, and again, giving them the vocabulary words instead of just coming right up to the teacher at her desk. She had these near her desk and they would say, excuse me, I have a question. I want to talk to you. So giving them those visuals again. Back in the day on our computers, teachers sometimes would put like a stop sign or just turn the computer off when it wasn't time to use it, or, students really weren't sure if they wanted to use the computer, what to say. And so the teacher's giving them the language all poured out on what to say on the right here. It says, ask your teacher first. The student can say, I want to go on YouTube, please. They fill in the blank. We are always talking about our feelings. I think it's one of the first things we say when we walk in the door for work each day or in the house. Oh, I feel so tired, or I am so excited. The weekend's almost here. So this is just a visual that was in one of our middle school classrooms to help really teach students and provide them a visual with sharing their feelings. These are some rules that are poured out that a teacher has up in her elementary classroom. When working on social skills, again, we want to provide students with that language. And this is just a great way to be able to have this as a visual guide. And then sometimes we fade it away, and sometimes students will carry things like this with them. This says, I like your blank. You look blank. We had a student that would look at people's shoes and just say, shoes, shoes, shoes. And then once we gave her this visual guide and we practiced using it, she would remember every time she'd go to say shoe, she'd look at it and she'd say, I like your shoes. And it puts it into context. Even, it's a big thing to have a classroom greeter pre-COVID, and students would have the option of, giving a hug, a high five, a wave, or a fist bump, and the student would be the classroom greeter. And that's a great way for them to be able to ask for that. Even something as simple as putting a core vocabulary word on, like here on an egg in the kitchen area in an early childhood classroom, and then flipping it over. It's amazing the language that comes out of the students just because they're flipping over and they see one of their words. There was a teacher that created this. Her students would sometimes talk out of turn or, would interrupt one another. And so she just created this visual guide on a fake microphone that says, it's my turn to talk. And I think on the other side, it says, can I have a turn to talk? In our transition program, we have students that are 18 to 21 years old that go out into the community quite a bit, and teachers will create visual guides for them as well. A lot of times they'll go to a store and then afterwards they'll go to a restaurant. So this is an example of that, where the student has a visual guide to help support them with asking what they need to find. And it's nice because if they don't understand the student perfectly clear, it is a nice visual guide for the adult as well that doesn't know the student. And then here they can order at a restaurant and have that information available in advance if needed. And they can reuse this sheet, which is great. And then we also create things. This is actually created in the Clicker Writer app. And what we've done is the students can write about, what they did over the weekend, or they can do any kind of writing. We can quickly change out the fringe, and they can do it either on their iPad or up on the smartboard and compose their writing material using the Chord Out visuals. Now, I do have to put a disclaimer. You'll see most of our visual examples are really for visual support to help expand an expressive language. I just wanted to stop for a moment and mention that we do need to use caution when using symbol-supported text when teaching students to read. So when it has to do with teaching students to read, we really don't pair the symbols with the text, because we really do want them to focus on the text. So that just a little thing I wanted to mention, a little disclaimer there. And then this one here is for a student the students are writing again with Clicker Writer or the Clicker 7 on the computer, and they are able to compose their note home. A lot of our middle and high school students are composing their own notes home. Each one of these things is a tab, but again, they are providing visual supports as well, just really to help with that expressive language when they go to share that with their parents at home. And now here are some examples of visual supports for daily routines and following directions. So this is an example of washing students' hands. Instead of just having the pictures, they have some of the language there as well and the visuals that they see on their core boards. Here's one for cubbies. This is a note home. The student can compose their own note home, and then they can go home and they can either verbally share with their parents what they did, or again, it's a nice visual guide for when they're using their communication boards or devices as well. This is an example of daily schedules. There's a variety of different types here, but again, you see the language, the one on the right with a red mark crossed out. Instead of just having table, morning circle, gym, play, they're giving them the language of what's next? Oh, I'm going to the table, or I am going to the gym. This is an incentives board. The student can earn pennies. They can choose what they're working for. But again, just to see those same visuals are universally used. And they're giving them the language again. This student uses Lamp Words for Life as his device for communication. And then his schedule is on here. His first then, it says I'm going to blank. First, we're going to do this, and then I get. So see, they even added I get, like I get, then first I'm going to read, and then I get to go on the iPad. Even for visual supports for things like writing, the teachers are providing them those visuals again, just to help them. And then even our occupational therapists on things like cutting activities will put the directions with visual supports. And we also create visual supports for our communication partners. So here are some examples of those. It's very helpful when they're modeling on core boards or communication devices to give them the language visually. So these are some scripts that staff can model using the students' devices. Some of the things socially we're targeting with the students, or things part of their day that we're targeting, staff can have these, and then they can practice saying it on the boards or device, and then prior to modeling for the students. We will also do that and attach it to communication devices and iPads. When I meet with staff, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll talk about the different things they do throughout the day or different areas of the room. And I have them brainstorm what are some core phrases that you can model, whether it's verbally, on a core board, or on a device? What could you model while you are in that area or while you are doing that activity? So they will brainstorm with me. I will type this out and I will put that in the area of the room. And then a lot of times what we'll do is we'll take a core board and we'll highlight those words so they don't have to focus on every single word if they're still new to modeling and using the board. And then we've even created visual phrases for staff. That we have these all throughout. This is the classroom. This one is for the puzzles and books area. And these are all words or phrases that the staff can model while they are with the student in that area. We also will just stick labels on toys and on games, again, for the staff to just take away that thinking of, oh gosh, I'm not even sure how to model, and now I have to model on the board. We kind of take that thinking and that extra work away by providing them with some of those phrases. So like while playing with this toy, here are some comments and questions that you can model. And while playing with this game, here are specific phrases that you can model both verbally and visually. And then what we do is we share these resources with one another. So if you work for a school district or in a school that is coring out all of their visuals, I highly recommend, we don't have a ton of time. So if you're creating something, I highly recommend that you share it. We actually have created a Google site and we have a Google Drive folder that we can add and add to constantly. So then anytime someone creates some of these visuals, we have a spot where you can go to and see if the visual has already been created, or just give each other even more ideas by seeing what other people have made. So that's a really nice way to be able to share resources. So thank you very much. I hope this gave you some great ideas on just how to make sure that you're really pulling out those core vocabulary words, providing them visually. And again, in our district, we've coined the phrase, when in doubt, core it out.
Thank you for watching. For more information on the ATP Education Program, please visit our website at atp.nebraska.gov/education or email us at atp.education@nebraska.gov.